Hi, welcome back to my channel. Today's going to be another video of me playing Minecraft and me reading Reddit stories to you guys. Today in my world, I'm just going to be looking for a new village to move my base to. Okay, here goes the stories. Okay, here's the first story. Regretting losing 250 pounds on Ozempic. I'm 36 male and 2 years ago I was 440 pounds. Now I'm down to 190. Everyone keeps congratulating me, telling me I should be proud for changing my life, but I don't feel like I've won anything. When I was big, I knew exactly who I was. I was the funny fat guy. I didn't have to try hard to get people to laugh at my jokes. They expected it and I delivered. I could read a room instantly and knew how to make people feel at ease. Strangers would approach me at bars, in the grocery store, on the street, anywhere. There was something about my presence that drew people in. I had my own gravity. It's like the air has been sucked out. It's like the air has been sucked out of every room I enter. The same jokes I used to kill now die on impact. People smile politely, but the spark is gone. My friends are still here, but they treat me differently, like they're not sure who I am. Honestly, neither am I. Strangers don't notice me anymore. I'm just a painfully average. I don't blend into the background. I am the background. My old confidence came from knowing my role, knowing what was expected from me, and being able to exceed those expectations. Now I'm nothing special. What makes it worse is knowing how I got here. It wasn't years of discipline in the gym, tracking every calorie. It was just one shot a week. People praise my hard work, and I just nod, knowing I skipped the part where I was supposed to earn it. That part that changes your head along with your body. I keep feeling like I dismantled who I was without building anything to replace it. Lately, I've been obsessing over bodybuilding forums, guys my age completely reinventing themselves. Now, not just getting lean, but built, size, presence, discipline, routine, real respect. Part of me wonders if I went all in, maybe even with a little extra help, I could feel the empty space I carved out of myself. My wife says I'm just chasing the next shortcut. She's probably right, but I can't shake the feeling that the problem isn't that I changed too much. Maybe it's that I didn't change enough. Damn, this post went deep. To me, this kind of sounds like this person is going through body dysmorphia. It's kind of like what happens when you go to the gym to a certain point in time and you know how you look a certain way after continuously having built your physique, but immediately once you start going to the gym and you lose all that muscle, it's like you don't know who you are anymore. I feel like this is kind of what this person is going through. But anyways, moving on to the next story. Okay, the second story goes like this. Today I found out a friend is a pedophile. I'm 40 and have known an 80-year-old man casually for 25 years. We reconnected recently while he helped me fix an amplifier. He's a retired electronics engineer. I always liked him. He was funny and kind despite severe birth defects from prenatal abuse. He told me how his father beat him throughout his childhood. I felt deep sympathy for him. During our time together, he shared increasingly strange stories about past friendships with young people. I initially dismissed them, attributing it to his difficult life. Then days ago, he read me a story he wrote. It started as a heartwarming tale of an older man rescuing an abused boy, but it contained unsettling undertones. I was sexually abused when I was young, and I worried I was overreacting. Today, he read the next chapter. It was undeniably explicit. After finishing, he eagerly asked my opinion, seemingly expecting praise. I was disgusted and left immediately. Now I'm left with a pit in my stomach. I can't burden my wife with this. She's a sensitive soul and life's hard enough. Here goes the next story. I found home videos of my family that shouldn't exist. My brother died when I was 7 years old. He was 13. He drowned in the lake down the street from our house. My parents never touched his room. They tried once, but they couldn't do it. Too raw. After that, the door just stayed shut. His room became a kind of museum of him. That was 11 years ago. His room still looks the same. This morning, while I was packing for college, I thought I'd finally go in there. My plan wasn't anything dramatic. I just wanted to grab a few hoodies, maybe a keepsake or two to take with me, something to hold on to when I got homesick. Full transparency, I've been in his room plenty of times before. I've sat on his bed, I've looked through his shelves, but I've never really gone digging. That felt wrong and I really had no inclination to. I just missed my brother. That wasn't my intention today either. It wasn't my intention to find a stack of DVDs shoved into the bottom drawer of his dresser. There were 3 of them, just labeled 1, 2, and 3. The only DVD player in the house is still hooked up to his old TV. Everything else went streaming years ago. For a minute I told myself not to do it. They weren't mine, they probably didn't matter. I picked up some of the items I'd collected, put the DVDs back in his drawer, and returned to my room. Tonight they stared calling to me. I know how that sounds. I know you're thinking it was just my curiosity eating at me, but it wasn't like that. It felt physical, a pull in my chest. So I crept back across the hall, slipped into his room, locked the door behind me so my parents wouldn't hear, and I put in the first DVD. It was a home video. I didn't even know we had any. I don't remember my parents ever owning a camera. The video starts with static, then clears just enough to show something. The picture is muddy, warped. It could be the living room, but the furniture looks wrong. Everything is too big or too small, shifting every time the frame jitters. Sometimes it almost looks like a bedroom, sometimes like a hallway. No faces, no clear shapes, just flickering shadows that don't match what the voices are saying. Because there are voices, familiar ones, laughter, clinking dishes, and my mom calling my brother's name, it sounds like family in the background, just out of sight. I hear my brother's laughter, and the sound swallows me whole. It rings through my body, through my head, bouncing off the bones that make up my skull. Then beneath it is another voice, low, deliberate, close enough that you couldn't miss it. You haven't noticed yet. Then the video cut off, just like that. I scrambled to replay it, not even thinking about the other two discs still stacked under the TV. I just wanted to hear him laugh again. That laugh, I tried not to think about the end, though the fear of it was crawling slowly up my spine as I hit play. Because the way it spoke, it sounded like it wasn't part of the recording at all, like it was speaking to the camera, to me. I pressed play again, this time pausing every few seconds, desperate to make sense of what I was seeing, but nothing held still. Everything on the film looked almost familiar, like a room you swear you've been in but can't place. The walls are a little too narrow and the colors are washed out enough to make it something you've never seen before. It made me feel like my brain was short-circuiting. Then I froze, the frame just before the moment he laughed, and there it was, a caption, faint and yellow, burned into the corner of the screen. July 30th, 2015, 7 months after my brother drowned. My first thought was that it was a glitch. It had to be. The camera must have been off by a year. There's no other explanation. I forced myself to breathe and to shove back the rising panic. Then I pressed play again. His laugh filled the room, and for a second my fear washed away. It was just him again. He was alive, warm, present, a bittersweet rush of comfort and grief. But then the voice returned, closer this time, wet against the microphone, broken and cutting in and out like static. You noticed. I ripped the DVD out of the player and threw it across the room. I don't even know why I did it. Adrenaline, I guess. My hands were shaking so hard I couldn't control myself. I'm trying to think of logical explanations. I want to believe there's one. Whatever reason I come up with feels paper thin. I just bolted back to my room and dove under the covers, like that would help. I don't want to watch the other videos, I don't, but I can feel them pulling at me, like they're not finished, like I owe them something I can't sleep. It's dark, it's late, the rain just started, the bathroom faucet always drips, but tonight it sounds so much louder. You could almost confuse it for footsteps. Here goes the next story. I'm a ride operator for a theme park. There's one roller coaster we are not allowed to operate. I've always been obsessed with roller coasters. There's just something about the way they defy gravity, defy death, rush you to the very brink, teetering at the edge where anything can go wrong, yet somehow everyone returns safe and sound at the end. At least most of the time, right? There's some roller coasters that have been famously dangerous, like the Jet Line in Sweden, a popular coaster that ran for decades, but after replacement parts weren't properly tested, one of the coaster's trams derailed fatally. Or at Six Flags, where a restraint on the Texas Giant coaster came undone and a woman was flung from the ride to her death. In my town, there's a small Six Flags style theme park. I won't tell you the name, but you've probably heard of it in the news recently. In any case, it's mostly rides and carnival games. I've been an operator there for the past few months, but there's one roller coaster that no passengers are allowed to ride. It's funny because I see them test running it all the time. One day I even went and asked a few fellow staff member, Markesha, when they were going to open the new coaster. She said never, and I couldn't tell if she was serious or joking. I asked her again. She said with a shrug, "Boss says the Ultimate has got some sort of bug." Anyways, fast forward a couple months and Markesha and I are kind of casually dating. She's nerdy, snarky, and a few years older than me. We're pretty different, but maybe that's why we get along. One thing that unites us is our passion for roller coasters. The Ultimate still isn't open, and one afternoon she suggests that maybe we ride it ourselves after the park closes. Wait, for real? I exclaimed. Yeah, I mean, like last time everything got safety checked, it passed all the checks. Plus, I saw someone on it yesterday when it was running. There's literally nothing wrong with it. I think it's just superstition. The boss won't open it to the public. He's convinced it'll go wrong like the first time, he says. The idea of there being some flaw in the Ultimate's design that could be dangerous gave me pause. But Markesha was at least as well versed as I was in all the ways theme park rides can kill you. Anytime there was news of another theme park death, we talk about it whether it fit into our top 10. Mechanical failures obviously are big on our list, and design failures like the water slide that decapitated a 10-year-old boy. Then there are human errors. We often argue whether to count fatalities from visitors trespassing in fenced off areas and then getting whacked by mechanical parts. I don't really count these since, well, it's kind of like when people play on train tracks. Not to be mean about it, but in those situations you can't really blame the rides. Anyways, the Ultimate didn't have any mechanical issues or design flaws, so in theory it should be safe. Like Markesha said, it had recently been tested for any engineering problems and passed with flying colors. It ran smoother than our flagship roller coaster, the Cobra. Neither Markesha nor I have had pre-existing health issues, and the design of the Ultimate was nothing extraordinary. It had only one giant loop and further on a smaller one. Despite the name, it was actually less intense than the Cobra, our most popular coaster. Probably the coolest thing about it was its design, a jet black roller coaster with sinuous curves like a serpent. So anyways, Markesha and a friend of hers, Carlos, and I all agreed to meet after the park closed and try out the Ultimate. Staff were still cleaning up around the park, but it was deserted of visitors when I went to meet Carlos at the main entrance. I remember Carlos and I walking toward those ominous black loops of the Ultimate and seeing the coaster running as Markesha put it through one more test run. Either another employee or a test dummy was in it as it shot by. It was very fast, not fastest in the world, but damned if it wasn't fastest in the park. Dude, that thing is awesome, exclaimed Carlos. When we got to the ride's entrance, Markesha told me everything checked out fine and that she and Carlos would go first. I started to object, but she said, "Nah, I get first dibs, I'll run it for you again after." "Woohoo, let's do this," said Carlos. Like all modern roller coasters, pretty much everything was automated after pushing the button for it to go. The main part of my job was the safety checks beforehand, making sure everyone was strapped in nothing loose, no belongings to go flying off and hurt someone, etc. I sighed and performed the requisite safety checks on Markesha and Carlos, tugging their harness to make sure they were strapped in. The rest of the train was, of course, empty. Come on, let's go," hooted Markesha. "Let's do this," shouted Carlos. I pressed the button and sent them on their way. The coaster began, its two passengers shouting and waving, and slowly ascended the incline to the park's most precipitous drop. I watched, trying not to feel envy. Oh, I'd get my turn. But I burned with the desire to go first. I watched as that sleek black train climbed to the very top, hung for a moment at the peak, and dropped like a bullet. Screams from my two friends as they plunged, their hands up, waving, laughter on their faces as they flashed by. And they were looping. I lost sight of them for a moment from the operator area, so I came out from under the roof and looked up. They were heading towards the second loop, but oddly there was another passenger. Somewhere at the back of the train car, but I could have sworn it was empty when they boarded the ride. As they spiraled into the second loop, I waited for renewed screams and laughter, but the roller coaster looped silently, winding on its hypnotic track and then taking the big slow circle around back to the start. Not a sound from it. Then click-clack of the train's arrival and the hiss of the brakes. At the front I could see Markesha and Carlos slumped in their seats, no one else in the train with them, and no movement from either of them. I did not immediately go to unbuckle them. I was too much in shock, because why weren't they moving? Why were they both unconscious? Had they hit their heads, been jolted too hard? But the ride looked so smooth. Suddenly another infamous roller coaster came to mind, one that had been designed but never constructed. Markesha and I used to debate about whether it would be fantastic or terrifying to ride, the euthanasia coaster. The idea is that 24 riders board and pass through 7 loops, and when the ride comes to a stop, they're all dead. The roller coaster's loops would become tighter and tighter, the G-force inducing prolonged cerebral hypoxia, insufficient oxygen to the brain. If you were a rider on it, you'd pass out and be dead before coming to the ride's end. To me, the concept is horrible. Marquesha always said it would be a terrific way to die. I still don't have the courage to approach her or Carlos. There was another staff member walking by outside the ride, pushing a drinks cart. I screamed for help. She came up and went to the roller coaster and swore and then got on the phone. Emergency services arrived and unstrapped Marquesha and Carlos. The next day, the park opened as normal. The incident didn't even make the news until much later, since there were no traumatized crowds or blood or cleanup, just the two bodies unstrapped and quietly carried away, and a roller coaster that remained out of commission as it had always been. I'm haunted by the fact mine was the hand that pushed that button, but the ultimate was examined and all that test runs of dummies proved safe. There's no explanation. The ride remains closed due to the bug that Marquesha mentioned to me before she decided we should try to ride it. The bug has kind of become an urban myth among the staff there. They test the coaster again every once in a while, running it without anybody on it. They never put anybody on it, but I learned later that the bug isn't a design flaw per se. What the boss calls the bug is actually a passenger, a rider that can always be seen in one of the seats near the back, even when the coaster runs with no one in it. A passenger who always appears after the first loop. At least I used to be a single passenger, now there are 3. Now for the next story. My dad spent 15 years tending to the tree in our backyard. I just cut it down and I don't think it was a tree. I don't know where else to turn. I can't talk to my mom about this, she's already a wreck. I can't talk to my dad because, well, here's the reason I'm writing this. I did something and I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought I was saving him. But now the house is filled with a silence that is so much worse than the screaming I wish I could hear. And I see the look in my father's eyes, and I know I've made a terrible, terrible mistake. I need help. I need someone to tell I need to do. We live in a nice house, the kind of place people move to when they want a family. A big yard, a picket fence, flower beds my mom fusses over. It was a normal, happy place to grow up until the tree. It all started about 15 years ago. I was 10. My dad came home from work one day absolutely buzzing with an energy I'd rarely seen. He was a quiet man, a decent man, worked a steady job in logistics, and his passions were small and manageable. He loved gardening, it was his escape. On this day, he was holding a small wrinkled paper bag. "Look at this," he said, his eyes shining as he showed me a single gnarled black seed. It was the size of a pigeon's egg, strangely heavy and covered in faint spiral patterns. Got it from a street vendor downtown. An old fella said it was special. Said it would grow into a great tree, a king in our yard. Said it would cast its shadow over the whole place and protect us. I was 10. I thought it was cool. My dad was a sane and rational man, but he always got a bit poetic when he talked about his garden. I just figured he was exaggerating to make his only kid excited. We planted it together in the center of the backyard. It was a good memory, one of the last purely good ones, I think. The tree grew and it grew fast, faster than any tree has a right to grow. Within a couple of years, it was already taller than me. My dad was ecstatic. He tended to it like it was some kind of deity. He built a small, neat wooden fence around its base, not to keep animals out, but it seemed to designate its space as sacred. No one else was allowed to water it. No one else was allowed to prune it. Not that it ever seemed to need it. It was his. For years, my mom and I just accepted it. It was Dad's hobby, his thing. When he was out in the yard kneeling by the tree, we knew that was his time. We didn't interfere. We didn't think much of it. But the tree kept growing, and as it grew, my dad started to change. Subtly at first. He'd spend more and more time out there. He'd come in for dinner with dirt under his fingernails and a distant, peaceful look on his face. He started talking about the tree not as a plant, but as a presence. "The tree is well today," he'd say. "It enjoyed the rain." We just smile and nod. By the time I was in my early 20s, the tree was a monster. It was a species none of us recognized. Its bark was a smooth, dark gray, almost black, and its leaves were a dark, deep, waxy green that seemed to drink the sunlight. It towered over our 2-story house, casting a vast, profound shadow over the entire backyard for most of the day. And that's when we really started to notice the wrongness. The first sign was the other plants, my mom's prize-winning roses, the vegetable patch, the cheerful little flowers she planted every spring, and anything that fell under the tree shadow for more than a few hours a day would wither and die. The soil beneath it became barren, gray, and hard as rock. Then the animals, birds stopped nesting in our yard. The squirrels that used to chase each other across the lawn vanished. Even our family dog, a golden retriever, would refuse to go into the backyard. He'd stand at the back door, waning his tail between his legs, refusing to set a single paw in the shadow. But the worst change was in my father. His obsession became his entire existence. He quit his job. He said that he needed to be home to attend to the tree. He'd spend all day from sunrise to sunset sitting on a small bench he'd built directly under its densest branches. He just sat there. Sometimes we'd see him from the kitchen window, his head tilted as if he were listening to something. Sometimes his lips would move, and we knew with a certainty that made us sick that he was talking to it. My mom and I tried to reach him. We pleased, we begged. "Honey, please," my mom would say, her voice breaking. "Come inside, eat something. You look so thin." He'd just shake his head, a slow, placid smile on his face. "I'm not hungry. The shadow is enough. It's so peaceful here. It comforts me. It can comfort you too, if you just come and sit with me." We never did. There was something about that shadow. It wasn't just a lack of light. It felt cold. It felt heavy. It felt hungry. Standing at the edge of it felt like standing at the shore of a deep, dark ocean you knew you shouldn't step in. The last weeks were the breaking point. He stopped coming inside at all, except to sleep in his chair in the living room for a few fitful hours. He was wasting away. His skin was pale and waxy. His eyes were sunken, but they held a serene, vacant glow that terrified me more than any anger could have. He was being consumed. The tree was eating him alive, and he was letting it. I decided I had to do something. I had to save him. The tree had to go. I waited until night. I watched through the window until he finally, reluctantly came inside and slumped into his armchair, falling into his usual restless sleep. The house was silent. My mom was asleep upstairs. This was my chance. I grabbed the heavy wooden splitting axe from the garage. My hands were sweating, my heart pounding, a frantic, terrified rhythm against my ribs. I stepped out the back door. The yard was bathed in the pale, ethereal light of a full moon, but the ground beneath the tree was a pit of absolute blackness. I stepped into the shadow. The cold was immediate, shocking. It wasn't a natural cold. It was a deep, draining cold that seemed to pull the warmth directly from my bones. I walked to the base of the tree. Its smooth black bark felt strangely slick to the touch, almost like skin. I raised the axe. As the metal had touched the bark, I heard it, a whisper right beside my ear, a voice that was both male and female, old and young. It was a rustle of leaves and a sigh of wind and a voice all at once. "Don't." I stumbled back, my heart seizing in my chest. I looked around widely. The yard was empty. I had to have imagined it. It was the wind. It was my own fear talking to me. It had to be. I steeled myself, spat on my hands, and swung the axe with all my might. Black. The sound was dull, wet, not the sharp crack of axe on wood I was expecting. It felt like hitting a side of beef. The axe bit deep into the trunk. It wrenched it free, and a dark liquid black in the moonlight began to ooze from the gush. I ignored it. I swung again and again. I fell into a frantic, desperate rhythm, sweat pouring down my face, my muscles screaming, the wet, fleshy thud of the axe, the splatter of the dark sap, the deep, draining cold of the shadow. It was a nightmare. With every swing, the ooze from the gash flowed more freely. The coppery, metallic smell of it filled the air. It was a smell I knew, a smell that had no business being here. It was the smell of blood. I touched the sticky liquid with my fingers, brought them to my nose. It was blood, thick, dark, real blood. Panic, stark and absolute, seized me. I wanted to run. I wanted to drop the axe and flee and never look back. But then I thought of my father, of his vacant, smiling face, of him wasting away on his bench. I couldn't stop. I had to finish it. I screamed, a raw, wordless sound of rage and fear. I put everything I had into the last few swings. The gash widened. The tree groaned, a deep, shuddering sound that seemed to shake the very ground. And then with a final, tearing shriek of splintering matter, it fell. It crashed into the yard with a ground-shaking boom, its great branches shattering my mom's empty flower pots. Silence. The shadow was gone. I was panting, leaning on the axe, my body trembling with exhaustion and adrenaline. My eyes were drawn to the stump, to the place where I had cut it. I pulled the small flashlight from my back pocket and aimed the beam at the wound. The inside of the tree wasn't wood. It was a chaotic, fibrous mass of what looked like dark red muscle and pale, glistening sinew, all woven around a central, horrifying core. Where I had cut the tree in half, I had also cut it in half. Embedded in the center of the trunk, integrated into its very being, was the torso of a human being. I could see the curve of the rib cage, the shape of the spine, the pale, rubbery look of preserved flesh I had cut clean through. The dark blood was still pouring from it, soaking into the ground. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't scream. I couldn't move. My mind simply stopped. What was this? Who was this? Why was this who my father had been talking to? Burn it. The voice came from behind me. It was quiet, raspy, and broken. I spun around, my flashlight beam cutting widely through the darkness. My father was standing at the edge of the patio. He wasn't looking at me. He was staring at the fallen tree, at the mangled, bleeding stump, and the expression on his face. It was the most profound, gut-wrenching sadness I've ever witnessed. The vacant serenity was gone, replaced by a grief so deep it looked like it had cracked his very soul. Dad, I whispered. We had to burn it, he repeated, his voice hollow. All of it, now. We worked together in a grim, silent ritual. We hacked the branches in the great trunk into manageable pieces. We dragged them into a pile in the center of the yard. My father moved like an old man, his newfound clarity costing him all his strength. He never once looked at the horrifying thing at the heart of the trunk. We doused the pile in gasoline and my father threw the match. The fire went up with a roar, a greasy black smoke that smelled of burning meat and something else. Something acrid and deeply wrong. We stood there for hours watching it burn until the great tree that had dominated our lives was nothing but a pile of glowing embers and a scorched black circle on the lawn. I thought I had saved him. I thought I had cut out this cancer that was killing him, but I was wrong. It's been a week. The tree is gone. The shadow is gone. My father, he's inside. He eats what my mom puts in front of him. He sleeps in his own bed. He's physically present, but he's not there. The obsession is gone, but the peace, twisted as it was, is gone too. It's been replaced by constant humming anxiety. He paces the house. He stares out the window at the empty space in the yard. He jumps at every unexpected sound. He doesn't speak, not a single word since that night. He just looks at me, sometimes with those haunted, broken eyes, and I feel like I'm the monster. I destroyed the thing that was consuming him, and in doing so, I seem to have destroyed him too. I traded a smiling zombie for a silent, terrified ghost. What was that thing? What did it do? And how do I fix my dad? Is there any way to bring him back from whatever edge I've pushed him over? Please, if anyone has any idea what happened here, tell me. The silence in the house is getting louder every day. Okay, here goes the next story. The campsite I found in the woods was perfect. Too perfect. I'm writing this from a hotel because I had to leave my tent behind. I need to write this down. I need to get it out of my head and into the world because I feel like I'm going crazy and because I need to warn people. I'm an experienced hiker. I'm not one of those weekend warriors who sticks to the paved, well-marked trails. I like the deep woods, the places where you can walk for a whole day and not see another soul. I had a long weekend, so I decided to tackle a remote trail in a state forest a few hours from my home. My plan was simple: hike in about 5 or 6 miles, find a good spot, camp for the night, and hike out the next day. Standard stuff. The hike in was beautiful. The air was crisp, the sky was a brilliant cloudless blue, and the late autumn sun cast long golden shafts of light through the canopy. The only sounds were the crunch of my boots on the fallen leaves, the chatter of a distant sparrow, and the wind whispering through the trees. This is why I do it, the feeling of absolute peace, of being completely disconnected from the noise of the world. After a few hours of steady hiking, I started looking for a place to make camp. I was looking for the usual, a relatively flat spot not too close to the trail, preferably with access to a water source, and then I found it. It wasn't just a good spot, it was a perfect spot, unnaturally perfect. I stepped off the main trail, pushing through a thicket of ferns, and found myself in a clearing I could only describe as idyllic. It was a perfect circle, maybe 40 feet in diameter. The ground was covered in a carpet of short, soft, vibrant green grass that looked more like a meticulously manicured lawn than a patch of wild forest floor. And the trees formed a perfect unbroken ring around the clearing. Tall, ancient oaks and pines stood shoulder to shoulder, their branches interlocking overhead like some kind of a dome, leaving this single perfect circle of green open to the sky. It was like something out of a fairy tale. A small rational part of my brain registered how strange it was. Clearings and dense forests are rarely so symmetrical. The grass shouldn't be so uniform, so soft, but the overwhelming feeling was one of discovery of incredible luck. It felt safe, protected. The circle of trees felt like a natural fence, a private room gifted to me by the forest itself. I dismissed my unease as the city dweller's cynicism, and I found the jackpot of campsites. I dropped my pack with a contented sigh and set to work. The tent went up easily, the stake sinking into the soft earth with a satisfying thump. I gathered some fallen branches from just outside the clearing and built a small, neat fire pit in the center. Soon a cheerful little fire was crackling away, warding off the evening chill. I cooked a simple meal of dehydrated chili and sat on my log, watching the flames dance as the sun set, painting the sky above the circle of trees in hues of orange and purple. This, I thought to myself, is perfect. This is what it's all about. As true darkness fell, the forest changed, as it always does. The familiar woods of the day became a strange place of shadows and unseen movements. But I was so snug in my little circle of light and warmth, I felt completely secure. After cleaning up my cook set, I doused the fire thoroughly, making sure every last ember was out, and crawled into my tent. I zipped up the flap, settled into my sleeping bag, and tried to sleep, and that's when the perfection started to unravel. It began with a feeling, a strange sensation from the ground beneath me. It was a faint, almost imperceptible movement. Directly underneath my sleeping bag, it felt like insects, a whole lot of them, moving around just under the tent floor. A low-grade, creepy, crawly feeling. I tried to ignore it. I'm in the woods after all. There are bugs. I pulled my sleeping bag tighter around me and closed my eyes, focusing on the gentle sounds of the night, but I couldn't sleep. The feeling persisted, a constant, subtle, wriggling sensation against my back. It wasn't painful, it was just wrong. Then the noises started. They came from outside the tent, from the ring of trees surrounding the clearing. A soft snap of a twig, the dry rustle of leaves. At first I assumed it was just an animal, a deer, maybe a raccoon, but the sounds were too regular. Snap, rustle, snap. They seemed to be moving slowly around the perimeter of the clearing, like someone is moving around me in the darkness. My heart started to beat a little faster. I lay there perfectly still, my ears straining in the darkness, and then I saw the shadows. My tent is made of a thin, light-colored nylon. The moon was bright, and it cast eerie, dancing shadows over the tree branches onto the tent walls. I watched them, trying to calm my racing mind. It's just the wind, I told myself. The wind is making the branches move. But there was no wind. The air was dead still, yet the shadows on my tent were moving, not just swaying, but actively, deliberately shifting. They were long, thin, finger-like shadows, and they were stroking the outside of my tent. I could see them sliding up the walls, tracing the seams like curious, probing fingers. I sat bolt upright, my breath caught in my throat. I grabbed my powerful flashlight from the mesh pocket beside me. My hand was shaking. I flicked it on, pointing the bright white beam at the tent wall. The shadows vanished in the glare. I swept the beam around the inside of the tent. Nothing. Just me, my gear, and my hammering heart. I turned the light off. The shadow fingers returned, caressing the thin fabric. I was terrified now. The feeling from the ground had intensified. It wasn't just a vague wriggling anymore. It was faster, more deliberate. It felt like 1,000 tiny needles tapping against the floor of the tent from underneath. I fumbled for the flashlight again, my hands slick with sweat, and pointed the beam down at the tent floor beside my sleeping bag. And I saw it. The grass had come through. Dozens of blade-like shots of the soft green grass had pierced the thick nylon floor of my tent. They were sticking out maybe half an inch like a patch of freshly sprouted lawn, but that wasn't the worst part. They were moving. They were swaying back and forth in perfect, horrifying unison. Swish, 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 a tiny hypnotic rhythmic motion. They weren't just blades of grass, they were something else. Cilia, teeth feelers, they were testing the air inside my tent. They were trying to find me. I screamed, then scrambled from the zipper of the tent door, my fingers feeling like useless, clumsy sausages. The sound of the zipper was obscenely loud in the silence. I burst out of the tent and stumbled to my feet in the center of the clearing, whipping the beam of my flashlight around widely. The clearing was empty. The circle of trees stood silent and still. For a moment, a silver of hope, of denial cut through my panic. Maybe I was hallucinating. Maybe I had finally lost it. Then I turned the flashlight back on in my tent, and the world fell out from under me. The tree branches weren't coming from the trees. They were coming from the ground. Dozens of thick, dark root-like tendrils, the color of wet earth, had erupted from the soft green grass of the clearing. They were wrapped around my tent, constricting it, squeezing it like a giant boa constrictor. The sleek dome of my tent was misshapen, bulked inwards under the pressure. The roots were fibrous and sinewy. I could swear I saw them pulsing with a slow, rhythmic beat, like a network of dark veins. They were pulling the tent downwards into the soft earth, which seemed to be yielding, sinking. It looked like my tent was being eaten, digested, and in the moment of absolute soul-shattering horror, I understood. I didn't think, I didn't grab my pack, I didn't try to save my expensive gear, my phone, my wallet, they were all in the tent, a tent that was currently being swallowed by the ground. The only thing I had was the flashlight in my hand and the clothes on my back. I ran. I ran for the gap in the trees that led back to the trail, my feet pounding on the soft, living earth. I felt a strange, sucking sensation with every step, as if the ground itself was trying to hold me back. I crashed through the ferns and onto the hard-packed dirt of the trail, and I didn't stop. The run through the forest was a blur of pure animal panic. The beam of my flashlight bounced and jittered, illuminating a chaotic, terrifying slideshow of dark tree trunks, twisted roots, and gaping black shadows. Every rustle of leaves was the creature, its tendrils slithering after me. Every shadow was its gaping maw. I ran until my lungs felt like they were on fire, until my legs were jelly, until I was sobbing and gasping for air. After what felt like an eternity, I saw it. A glint of reflected light through the trees. My car. The sight of that familiar man-made object was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. I burst out of the woods and snuck into the small graveling parking area, fumbling in my pocket for the spare key I always keep there. My hands were shaking so violently it took me 3 tries to get it into the lock. I threw myself into the driver's seat, slammed the door, and locked it. I sat there for a moment, my chest heaving, listening to the sound of my own ragged breathing. I jammed the key in the ignition, and the engine roared to life. A beautiful, beautiful sound of civilization and escape. I didn't look back. I drove all night, the adrenaline coursing through my veins, not stopping until the sun was up and I was hundreds of miles away. I'm safe now, I guess. I'm in a cheap motel room, but I'm not okay. I close my eyes and I see it. The wriggling grass, the pulsing dark roots. That was the way my tent buckled and sank into the earth. I think the clearing wasn't a clearing. It was a thing, a living thing. The soft grass wasn't grass. It was a lure. The soft lining of a mouth. The perfect circle of trees wasn't a protective fence. It was the rim of the jaw. And I had willingly, happily set up my camp in its tongue. Here's the next story. I've been a cab driver for over a decade. There are rules when driving passengers at night. There's a reason we're scared of the dark. That familiar discomfort when you're driving alone at night, even if you don't see anyone on the road around you. It's instinct, a warning built into your bones. Because there are things out there, beings we can't explain. They don't show up on camera. They don't care about your pepper spray, but they follow rules, ancient ones, rituals maybe. I don't know where they come from or who made them, but I've learned this much. If you follow the rules, they'll leave you alone. I just never thought I'd experience something like that behind the wheel of a damn cab. People think being a rideshare driver is simple, and they're right for the most part. You drive, you talk if they want to talk, you drop them off, you get paid, no real boss breathing down your neck, no office politics, no deadlines, just the road, your car, and a playlist long enough to keep you entertained between rides. That's why I started doing it in the first place, after I left my old job. I didn't want to deal with people anymore. Not really. I'd been a mechanic for 20 years, ran my own shop until my knees gave out and my business went to shit. The rideshare apps came at the right time. I didn't have to smile if I didn't want to. I didn't have to fix anybody's problems, just get them where they were going. During the day, it's easy. College kids heading to class, nurses pulling doubles, grocery store runs for people without cars, honest, quiet work. Sometimes I'd even enjoy the small talk. I liked hearing about their lives, felt like I was doing something good, even if it was just 5 stars and a quiet thanks. But at night, things change. The air gets heavy, the people get strange. I remember when I first heard about the rules of the road after sundown. Not guidelines, not suggestions, rules. They show up on the app the second the sun begins to set. And if you break one, well, let's just say you don't want to find out what happens. I'm sure this is very confusing to hear for the first time, so let me explain. Every night shift starts the same. Right after sunset, the app buzzes and emits a strange sound. Not a standard chirp a notification makes, something dull and stringy, like a warning siren before a storm, on a much smaller scale, of course. The screen goes black just before a message appears in blocky text. Night shift protocols, active between sunset and sunrise. Do not look at passengers directly. Use the rearview mirror if you want. Do not accept payment greater than the cab fare. Never take gifts. Only process one ride at a time. Never allow multiple passengers in your car. Make sure your final passenger is dropped off before sunrise. I review them every time, even though I've got them memorized. I don't know if the app updates them or if something darker is watching to make sure I read them. Either way, I never skip that screen. At least I don't anymore. I made the mistake of ignoring the rules once, and that was one time too many. I never really was a superstitious man. Back when I started doing nights, I laughed. Rules like this felt like a joke, some edgy tech campaign or something. The kind of stuff that gets passed around on Halloween to show they're being hip and festive. But the thing is, these rules, they're the real deal. The consequences are even more real. I learned that the hard way. It started with something small, just a guy who insisted on paying double. He said he appreciated my service, said I looked tired, and he wanted to bless me. He pulled out a crisp 100 and sent it gently on the center console. I told him no. He insisted. I told him again. He smiled and slipped it into the cup holder. It's yours either way, man. I didn't touch it, just left it there until he was gone. I mean, what's the harm? The guy looked unremarkable after all. A middle-aged gentleman with slick back salt and black pepper hair, reading glasses, t-shirt and a vest give me an easygoing surfer vibes. Then I looked up in the mirror. He was still there. I heard him leave, heard the door shut behind him and saw him disappear into the dark. But he was there, grinning. His eyes were all black. He mouthed something, but the words didn't match the movement, like a broken puppet trying to whisper a prayer. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I reached back, heart pounding. The seat was empty. He was nowhere to be found. Except for the mirror. He stayed there for the rest of the drive, just smiling, chatting away. I parked my car in the farthest corner of my apartment's lot, locked the doors, and went inside. That $100 bill stayed exactly where it was, untouched, humming with some quiet, invisible pressure. I could feel its pressure everywhere I went. Something was trying to make me go back for it. Spend it, maybe. I wasn't sure, but I needed help to make it go away. I contacted support through the app. There's no helpline, no human name, just a form with one question. Describe your incident. I typed everything. The passenger, the tip, the mirror. I waited. I felt so silly. 24 hours later, I got a reply. Protocol breach acknowledged. Remedial steps required before shift may resume. Burn the foreign currency. Avoid seafood for 2 full days. Thanks for contacting technical support. That was it. No apology, no explanation, just instructions. I picked up the $100 bill like it was a loaded firearm and was surprised by the weight of it. I went out to the alley behind my complex and set it on fire in a soup can. The flames hissed green for a moment, then evaporated. It didn't smell like money burning, it smelled like salt and old fish. I skipped sushi that week. Thankfully, I am not much of a fish guy. By the third night, the app let me log in again, and like nothing ever happened, the rides returned. It has been pretty much smooth sailing ever since. Not every shift is terrifying, some are just weird. Like the woman in the bright yellow dress who got in without saying a word and only whispered her destination, the bog. Or the man who didn't blink, stared straight ahead and screamed every time we passed a fire hydrant. The weirdest ride I ever gave was from last November. It was around 3:12 a.m., the dead stretch of time where the world feels empty. I was parked near the outskirts of town, engine idling, watching a moth dive repeatedly into the windshield. A ping came through. There was no address, just coordinates. I almost declined. Nobody lives way out there. It's all farmland and old sheds. But I was behind on rent and I was pretty good at following the rules at this point. The profile picture was blank. Name just said M. Fine, I accepted. As I approached the pickup spot, My headlights hit something standing in the middle of the road. A man, no, a figure, very still, dressed in old-fashioned clothes, black hat, long coat, hands folded in front of him like he was at a funeral. I stopped. He didn't move. I glanced at the app. The pin was directly on him. Against my better judgment, I rolled down the window a few inches. Hey, you M? The figure nodded once. I unlocked the doors and pulled up the rules panel on the app in my phone. Same rules as always, no change. I read over the first one for good measure. Do not look at passengers directly. Use the rearview mirror if you must. Right. He opened the back door and slid in. Didn't speak, just sat there, the seat creaking under his weight. I pulled away from the shoulder and merged back onto the main road. The silence was suffocating. I snuck a glance into the rearview mirror. At first I saw nothing. Then the mirror fogged up, as if someone had breathed on it from the inside. I whipped away the condensation with my thumb and nearly jumped in my seat at what was revealed beneath. The figure in the back seat wasn't looking at me. It was holding something. A large postcard flat against its face like a mask. Long fingers curled around the edges, fingers with nails so long and yellow they looked rotted. Just the sight of them sent a cold wave down my spine. I leaned forward just slightly, enough to make out the writing. 2 words scrolled across the card in what looked like red ink or blood. I couldn't tell. Just drive, it said. I didn't ask questions, I drove. For 40 minutes, we cruised past silent fields, dead gas stations, and stretches of road I'd swear I'd never seen on any map. I didn't get a destination update, no timer, just me, the road, and whatever was sitting behind me. The silence felt thicker than usual. The only sound was the low hum of the engine and the occasional creep of the frame. Like the car itself felt uneasy. I kept checking the rear view, but the mirror kept fogging up over and over. I wiped it clean with the side of my hand, each time revealing the same thing. He was closer. At first he was sitting upright, stiff, almost mannequin-like. Next time he was leaning slightly forward. Then his knees were nearly touching the back of my seat. His hat was old and stained, the brim tipped just low enough to hide most of his face, torn in one corner, frayed like it had been dragged through gravel. I couldn't see his eyes, but I could feel them, like heat on the back of my neck. A cold sweat was forming along my forehead. I didn't know what to do. No name, no timer, no destination. That had never happened before. I gripped the wheel tighter and kept driving, heart pounding louder than the tires on the asphalt. What do I do if he doesn't leave? What if he just sits there until the sun comes up? Something bad would happen. I didn't know it exactly, but I knew the rules. This wasn't just another creepy fare. At exactly 4 a.m., he tapped the window twice. I pulled over. Before I could say a word, the door creaked open and slammed shut. I checked the mirror, fog gone, seat empty, except for something left behind. There was a small envelope with one of those fancy wax seals. Inside was a bundle of tattered cash, wrapped in a classy red bow. Not a cent over the fare, thank God. I set it aside and sat there for a while, just breathing. The car was finally quiet still. The night felt like it happened ages ago. I'm more seasoned now. Passengers of our destination, common occurrence these days. Took me a while to realize they're not chasing a place, they're chasing a feeling, a reaction. They're insatiable like that. But I've learned a lot since then. I know better than to feed their desires. You give them the cold shoulder long enough and eventually they leave. These days I'm more composed, like a prison warding, faring rowdy inmates. I even bought a pistol. It sits in the glove compartment, mostly idle. But if someone in the back gets bold, starts creeping too close, a little flash of the barrel is usually enough. They growl, they curse, slam the door behind them, cab fare left on the seat, not a cent overpaid. I don't bother being gentle, it's not like they can tip me. But tonight I am feeling a bit more anxious than usual. It isn't because of the job. Nope, supernatural cab passengers are a walk in the park compared to what I have in store tomorrow. My son's getting married. I haven't been part of his life, not really. That was my fault. I kept my distance after the divorce. Told myself he'd be better off without me hovering around. No awkward visits, no clumsy father-son talks, just space. But when the invitation came, I cried. I just sat on the couch clutching that envelope and cried like I hadn't in years. There was no way I was missing it. I've missed too much already. I should be resting right now, getting ready for the big day, but I needed to calm my nerves. For some odd reason, this job does it for me. Midnight hits, the app dings, first right of the night. I take a deep breath and swipe to accept. Gotta focus, just gotta get through the shift. It's straight to the hotel, change into the suit, and head to the ceremony. The guy who gets in looks normal. Colored shirt, dark jeans, clean cut. He slides into the back seat without a word at first. I start driving. A few blocks in, he speaks up. Big night? I nod. Yeah, my son's getting married tomorrow. Oh, that's great. What's his name? I hesitate. James. He repeats it real slow. James. Strong name. What time's the wedding? 2, I say, eyes fixed on the road. He grins. That's wonderful. You must be proud. I gave a tight smile, but don't answer. Something about the way he's asking all this makes me uneasy. It's not the questions. People make small talk all the time. It's the way he leans in when he speaks, like he already knows the answer, like he's confirming something. We pull up to his drop off. He thanks me, steps out, and just stands there on the curb, staring through the rear window. I look straight ahead and pretend not to notice. After a few seconds, he disappears into the dark. I sit there in silence, hands still on the wheel. That was strange, even stranger than usual. Then it hits me. The rules. I forgot to check the rules tonight. I pulled up the app and swiped to the rules section. Crap. There's a new rule. Don't talk to the passengers about your personal life. I stare at the screen like I may be reading it wrong, like maybe it's always been there and I just never noticed. But I know better. That rule wasn't there yesterday. My heart's still pounding. I pull over, open the app, and send a message to support. Something simple. There's a new rule. I broke it. How bad is this? What should I do? No reply. Silence ensued. Last time I broke the rule, it took 24 hours to respond, and I don't have 24 hours. Eventually, I pull back onto the road. I'll figure I'll do a couple more drop-offs, keep things simple. Maybe if I don't mess up again, everything will smooth over. The next passenger seems normal enough, quiet, but there's this weird vibe, a kind of smugness. A few of them chuckle under their breath. One guy keeps stealing glances at me in the rear view like I'm the punchline to some inside joke. Another girl won't stop smiling, just this too wide grin like she knows some deep dark secret about me. It starts to wear on me. By the third ride like that, my stomach's churning. And then it gets worse. My next pickup is a woman standing alone on the corner in a full wedding attire. A long white dress, veil, bouquet. It looks new, clean, not like a Halloween thing. This looks real, expensive. She doesn't speak when she gets in, just hums softly. And then she starts singing, Here Comes the Bride, over and over, whispered, off-key, like she's only half remembering the melody. The hairs on my arm stand up. I drive in silence, try not to react. She keeps singing all the way to her destination, and just before she opens the door, she leans forward and whispers, So when's the wedding? I say nothing. She tilts her head like a confused bird, then she gets out and drifts off into the dark, dragging the bottoms of the dress behind her. I'm breathing hard now, knuckles white on the wheel. Next right, a guy in a wrinkled button-up shirt, tie hanging loose. He climbs in already shouting. He was a goddamn mechanic, and you know what? He was useless, sat on his ass for 20 years, and expects me to be grateful. I keep driving, he doesn't stop. My fiancée wants me to invite him. Can you believe that? To my own wedding? She doesn't know the guy. Hell, I don't even know the guy. He starts banging his fist on the seat in a rhythm, like he's working himself up to something. I glance in the rear view. Big mistake. His eyes are wild, red around the edges. There's something shiny in his lap. For a second, I think it's a phone. It's not. Without warning, he raises a pistol, sticks it under his chin, and pulls the trigger. A deafening pop. The windshield doesn't shatter, but I hear the spray hit the back window. He slumps sideways. The door opens on its own, like someone was helping him out. I hear his body land on the sidewalk with a thump, and the door slam shut behind him. I don't stop. I don't check. I just keep driving. Like I said, I'm a seasoned driver now. Sad to say this isn't the first time one of those loons popped themselves in the backseat to try and get me to turn around. I have bigger issues to worry about. The real brake hung heavy in my head, and I still haven't heard back from support. The next passenger looked relatively normal, clean cut, mid-20s, buttoned-out shirt tucked into red jeans. He smiled as he climbed into the back seat. Polite nod, no words. The last few rides had been unsettling to say the least, but this guy felt different. Not better, just different. He didn't speak, he didn't need to. Something in his silence felt smug, like he already knew me, like we'd done this before. We drove for 15 minutes without a word, then I pulled up to the hotel. He didn't move. I shifted into park and turned slightly, still not looking directly at him. Just using the mirror. This is the address, you're good to go. He stared at me, no change in expression, no acknowledgement. And then I heard it, a knock on the driver's side window. Dad? I nearly jumped out of my skin. I turned and there he was, James, my son, in his dress shirt and slacks, standing outside the hotel looking confused and a little nervous. The same hotel he and the groomsmen were staying at tonight, how could I forget? I forced a smile. Oh, hey son, just dropping someone off. You nervous for tomorrow? He squinted at me like something was off. Yeah, can we talk? My stomach tightened. I had to get this guy out of the car. Sure, just let me finish this ride. I'll come inside after, okay? His eyes drifted past me to the back seat. Troy? He said. I froze. The figure in the back seat leaned forward, resting his elbows casually on the front headrest. His smile widened. Hey man, can you believe this? I ran into your pops and figured we'd do a quick beer run before the big day. Hop in. My blood went cold. No, 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 no. That isn't Troy, I thought to myself. But I couldn't tell James that. I didn't know what would happen if I did. This was bad. Really bad. No, James said, shaking his head in disbelief. Troy, you were just inside. You were with the guys. How did you get out of here so fast? The figure didn't break character. He laughed it like it was a shared joke between friends. James looked between us, clearly unnerved. Dad, who is that? I didn't wait for the thing in the back to answer. This couldn't go on any longer. I slammed the car into drive and tore out the parking lot, tires screeching, engine roaring. In the mirror, James was yelling something, running after us. I couldn't hear him. You're gonna miss the wedding, the thing said, a voice pretty calm. That's not very fatherly of you. Shut up, I snapped. You're not getting in my head. Oh, come on, it cooed. Don't be like that. Your son talks about you all the time, to me, to everyone. I kept my eyes on the road, jaw clenched so tight I could feel it in my temple. Although he doesn't say good things, you're not a good father, Ben. Shut up, I hissed, tears bubbling in the corner of my eyes. You missed birthdays, missed milestones. What are you even doing now? Trying to show up at the last second and pretend it means something? I gripped the wheel harder. I wanted to slam the brakes, throw open the door, and drag this thing out by whatever skin it had stolen. Oh, don't be like that, Ben. I have something that'll cheer you up, it whispered. Just keep driving all the way until the sun comes up. I have something to show you. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. My phone buzzed on the seat beside me. James, again. I didn't answer. The only sound in the car was the hum of the tires, and the thing breathed behind me, waiting. I wasn't sure what to do now. The passenger gave me a drop off and refused to get out. That hasn't really happened before. There's no way for me to force it out either, not without looking directly at it. If I couldn't get this guy to leave before the sun came up, I was screwed. It was useless. I pull over hard, tires kicking up dust on the shoulder of the road. The thing in the back doesn't flinch. Just smiles like it's been waiting for this moment all night. I open the glove box and take out my Glock 45. Oh, it says. That didn't take long. You already getting tired of me, Ben? I don't answer. I close my eyes and take a few deep breaths. Oh, Ben, you don't have to do this. You're going to miss out all the fun I have in store. I don't even turn around. I raise the gun behind me, steady my breathing and pull the trigger. The shot is deafening in the confined space. I don't look. I just sit there. Eyes ringing, heart thudding. I wait for movement, for another voice, but there's nothing. I finally peek into the rearview mirror once again. It's slumped over in the seat, still smiling, but quiet now, unmoving. I knew that wasn't going to kill the thing, but it still felt good. I just needed to shut it up for a minute. If it wasn't going to leave, so be it. I had to come to terms with the fact that I wasn't going to make it to the wedding. I was going to abandon my son again. This time for good. The least I could do was say sorry. Tell him I loved him. I just wish I could have done it sooner. Damn it, I wish I had more time. I pull out my phone, hands shaking. I try to call James back, but it goes straight to voicemail. I speak through the lump in my throat. Hey, it's Dad. I wanted to say I'm sorry for everything. I should have been there for you. I should have been better. The thing in the backseat was sitting up right now, dusting off its blood-soaked shirt and slicking back the loose hair where the bullet exited. I started to sob into the phone. But I'm proud of you, James. I really am. Despite all my mistakes, you've done everything right, and I'm really, really happy I get to be at your wedding. The mimic was coughing now, pounding its chest with a closed fist. I heard a loud metallic clang as the bullet bounced off one of its teeth on the way out of its throat. I stifle a sob and take a deep breath before continuing. I love you so much, James. I'll see you soon, buddy. I hang up, tears running down my face, fogging up the screen. I sat there in silence for a few minutes. I watched as an orange glow began to rise on the horizon. It was almost sunrise. I closed my eyes and gripped the steering wheel in grim anticipation. This was it. I wasn't sure what happened if I broke this rule, but I knew there was no coming back from it. Tech support wouldn't be able to help me out of this one. Then I heard clapping. Soft, slow. I look up. In the rearview, I see the thing clapping and wearing a wide smile, Only this time it doesn't look as smug, it appears sincere, genuine. Nice job, Bennett says, really touching. It drops a handful of bills into the seat beside it and steps out of the vehicle. It stucks its head inside to give one final farewell. Congrats on your son's wedding. Then it was gone just before the sunrise. I'm not sure why it decided to leave. All the night passengers want something, a reaction, a release. Most of the time, it is something mean-spirited. They crave anger, heartbreak, desperation. Maybe this one was benevolent. Maybe it needed to experience something heartfelt, something real. God knows I needed it too. I'm just glad it's all over. I don't take any more rides for the rest of the night. I went home, scrubbed the blood off the backseat even though there wasn't any, changed the air freshener even though it smelled new, took a long hot shower, put on the suit I hadn't worn in years. When I looked in the mirror, I almost didn't recognize myself. I don't look any different, but I felt different. I wasn't ashamed of the man that looked back at me. I was going to be a new person. I knew it was too late to be a good dad. I've been away too long to fix that, but he would always be my son, and he needed to know that I was never going to abandon him again. I got in the car, not for work, just to drive to the wedding, and for the first time in a long time, I felt something that almost scared me more than a lifetime of ferrying supernatural passengers. Hope. That's all the stories I have for today, and I hope you've enjoyed them.